So August's Fractured Frontier season is just around the corner and we have an entire new keyword to be playing around with, alongside a pretty crazy season pass card. So before we jump into this, I think I should probably break down the keyword. So quick draw. I usually record these videos a few days before the actual official channel makes their video, so we haven't seen this 100%, but everybody feels like it's 99% sure that it's if you play the card on the turn that you draw it. So with that bearing in mind, I would say that the cheaper a card is with quick draw, the easier it is to actually get that effect off. Because my reservations came from the fact that if a card is 3 cost and you need to quick draw it, if you draw it on turn 1 or 2, you can't get its quick draw effect off. So with that in mind going forward, that might slightly affect my card ratings. And the other thing to bear in mind is if you were to draw that 3 cost on turn 4, to get its effect off you would have to play it turn 4, and possibly alongside a 1-drop, which you can't guarantee, making it a slightly clunky keyword but with a good payoff. So what better card to start with than Thanos Fractured Frontier? He is a 5/8 that reads Game Start, Load an Infinity Shot. Your cards have quick draw, Thanos loads again. On reveal, fire all shots. So to really break this card down, we're going to have to take a quick look at all of the Infinity Shots and then back to Thanos. So first off, we have Reality Shot, which is make a copy of your other lowest cost card here. We have Power Shot, which is empower this card +3. We have Time Shot, which is reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. We have Space Shot, which is empower Thanos Fractured Frontier +1. He has movable next turn. We have Soul Shot, destroy the weakest enemy card here. And we have Mind Shot, which is draw 1 card. So off the bat, one of the questions we had before was, will these effects that empower Thanos also empower the other Thanos? And based on the fact that they say Thanos Fractured Frontier, the other one says empower this card, I think probably not. And another thing to bear in mind is, since I did the leaks video, Thanos has been buffed by +1 power, which generally means the card is underperforming to second dinner's expectations. Now, seeing as it's a season pass card, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not too good by any means. However, a lot of these effects seem pretty strong. So let's break the card down. You're loading an Infinity Shot every single time. So by default, it's a 5/8 with one of those effects. And then the quick draw, I think you'll get off a decent amount of times. And you're guaranteed to do so with Quicksilver and Domino, for example. So they are 2 cards you can just get 3 shots in Thanos. You do also have to draw Thanos, which is another thing to bear in mind. You're building your game plan around him with the hopes of drawing him. Similarly to Star-Lord, Master of the Sun, I would think, because you're kind of like leaving an energy for that card and hopes that you draw it. Now you can also put other quick draw cards in your deck that will benefit off of themselves being a quick draw card. So comparable to Star-Lord in that sense, that's like putting a couple of high evo cards in there or Sunspot. And before I get too down the lines of comparing it in that aspect, the card in general seems pretty strong. It's on reveal as well, so if you play it on Wong, actually not gonna lie, don't know how that works. Because if you fire all loaded shots, do they then become no longer loaded, you know? Something else we'll have to figure out. There's a few questions around this card that still have to be answered. The other question I had was, when you load a shot, is there an equal chance to load all shots every time? So you could get Time Shot, Time Shot, Time Shot, Time Shot, for example. Or if you've loaded Time Shot, is it guaranteed to give you a different shot? Yet another question that isn't answered, but might be answered when they do the dev update in a few days. For now, let's take a look at the tokens. Reality Shot, making a copy of your other lowest cost card here. If you're running Quicksilver to get the quick draw, it's probably just going to make a 1/2, which isn't amazing, but you can probably work around making something interesting. With how Afflict is at the moment, making a copy of your lowest cost card doesn't feel amazing, unfortunately, but I still think could be pretty decent. Power Shot empowering Thanos, kind of just generic. You can always do something with Venus, for example, but aside from that, fairly straightforward. We have Time Shot, which seems to be one of the strongest ones, reducing the cost of cards in your hand by 1. Space Shot, giving Thanos +1 and movable. Movable is always just a strong ability to have, so I also think probably one of the strongest ones on there. Soul Shot, destroying the weakest enemy card here. You're more than likely going to play it on a location where that benefits you a lot. If you play it against like an Iska singling a lane and you get Soul Shot to just shoot Iska, it feels very strong. Which is another point, do we actually know what's loaded? That's the thing, because if you know there's a soul shot loaded, it makes the Thanos card so much better. If you don't know that there's one loaded, then you're kind of gambling on if you're even going to get that effect to go off. And then we have Mind Shot, which is draw one card. Again, pretty decent. So in general for this card, I think because there's a couple of unanswered questions, it makes it difficult to know where to rank the card. I'm going to give it 4.5. Now, it's not going to be my 5 for the season. I do have one lined up that I'm definitely going to give 5-star to. Maybe it's because I'm biased, but we'll see. But this card feels like pretty strong. I don't see any scenario where it's going to be like lower than 4-star. Even if you just play a 5/8 that gets a single one of those effects, which the card is by default, would you play a 5/8 that drew a card? Probably. Would you play a 5/8 that reduced the cost of your entire hand by 1? Probably. The only downside is you don't know what effect you're getting, unless you do, which I think I would doubt. Which is the only thing stopping me from giving it 5-star. If you knew every effect you got, the card would be kind of busted. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that ranking. So next up we have the Super Premium Season Pass card with Jane Foster Fractured Frontier, which is a 3/4 that reads, on reveal, judge 4 other random characters, +1 power if yours, -1 power if the opponent's. Quick draw, judge the worthy again. So the quick draw being that it just repeats those 4 effects. Feels pretty good. Another question I had was if you were to play the on reveal onto Wong with the quick draw, would the quick draw also go off a second time, or would it only be the on reveal? A couple of questions around the season. I would probably lean towards the on reveal going off, the quick draw going off, and then just the on reveal going off. But it's a pretty cool card. You don't necessarily know whether it's going to hit fully enemies, fully your cards, meaning it's a little bit awkward in that sense. However, by default, that's a 3/8 and then it's a 3/12. So just pure stat-wise, it becomes pretty strong. If you pair it then with like Venus, or you pair it with some Afflict cards, I see the card being pretty decent. I think straight up I'm going to give it 4 stars. Now, I'm a little bit reserved on it because it's so random. A lot of cards that become very good in Marvel Snap, things like Mother Ascani, for example, become very good because they have very clear synergies. If a card is just good statted, there are some decks it could land in, things like Scar decks having big statted cards, or if they have an effect that likes to be repeated with on reveals or ongoings, for example. Jane Foster feels like it has a pretty decent effect to repeat. The only downside is not knowing whether it's taking power off your enemy cards or giving power to your cards, and the fact that it's quick draw. Because as I said at the start, you draw a whole bunch of cards on turn 1. Imagine Jane Foster is one of those cards. There is a card coming up soon that I will talk about that could assist in that downside. However, as it stands, you would then just play it on turn 3, when you got to turn 3, if you already had it in your hand. And at that point, it's like, would you even want to play it? If you're running in a Thanos deck, for example, and on turn 3 you drew a 1, 2, or 3 drop, would you prefer to play that instead? And not even bother playing Jane because you want to get a shot for Thanos? It's a bit of a weird one. And it's slightly clunky in that regard. I'm still giving it 4 because it's 3/8 and 3/12 on a good day. So I could never really see it being lower than that. But again, because its synergies are very, I don't know, like you wouldn't run Diamondback with this. You wouldn't necessarily run Venus with this unless, I guess with like Thanos, you were kind of building the deck around it. But you definitely wouldn't run like Captain Carter, or maybe I'm speaking too soon. I was about to say you definitely wouldn't run like Captain Carter and Maverick and all of that. But I suppose there is a possibility you could, because it's a 3-drop, it could still slot into those Surfer style decks. But I'm pretty happy with 4. Then next up we have Psylocke Fractured Frontier, which is a 3/4 as well, that reads, on reveal, give cards in your hand to the top 5 cost or more, -1 cost, quick draw your whole hand instead. So as I mentioned in the leaks video, this is basically a cheaper Serra. However, it only hits your current hand, it's not ongoing. but that is again under the impression that you are playing this as you quick draw it. So for Jane Foster, for example, even if you weren't playing it when you were quick drawing it, it was always a 3/8. With Psylocke, you're more than likely going to build your deck around it, right? If you put it in a Thanos deck, you're going to hit Thanos with it. You probably have a bunch of other 5 and 6 cost cards in your deck, which then makes the fact that she gives all the cards in your hand -1 cost. You're probably going to want to put some cheap cards in there as well, to go alongside the fact that like your 5-drop is now a 4-drop and your 6-drop is now a 5-drop. You want to have some smaller things to play alongside them in that instance. Now, I don't necessarily know what style of deck this will go into necessarily, probably ramp. Because ramp is trying to get the extra energy to play every turn, making the cards cost less as well feels pretty decent. And in that sense, because it's hitting 5-drops primarily, that's probably where it's going to go. Something else I would bear in mind is the season pass card for the month afterwards is Superior Iron Man, and that gets double discounts. So if Psylocke hits that, it will then become a 3-drop, which feels very strong. Definitely bear that in mind when deciding if to get this card or not. Meaning that it might not be able to show its true colors until the following season. However, I don't know. The quick draw thing is making me want to be reserved on judging these cards, but even its effect to give cards that cost 5 or more in your hand -1 still feels pretty good. Like, if a 3/4 existed that just had that effect, would you play it? And my instinct is to say yes, but it then on top of that has another effect that discounts your entire hand. Now, quick draw could be one of those things where it is too clunky for these cards to feel good, and I think that could be a downside. However, all the quick draw cards have their own effects alongside the quick draw, so you never feel like you have to just play it for the quick draw. These ones are very difficult to rank, I can't lie. I'm going to give Psylocke 4 stars as well. Maybe they've overcooked with these, or the other possibility is quick draw is too clunky to make these cards good, in which case I will, when I do my review of all of these reviews at the end of the year, I will have to eat my words on these. But for now, I do believe it's pretty strong. Then on the very next day, on August 5th, we have Dr. Octopus Fractured Frontier, which is the Series 4 card. It is a 2/2. On reveal, put your leftmost card in your hand on top of your deck to get a random character. Give both +3 power. I think this is pretty strong. With all of its stats put together, it's basically a 2/8, which is kind of nuts. Again, this card did get 1 power buff. It was a 2/1 before, which is some consideration there. However, this is the card I was talking about that would work with quick draw cards. So if we think about, if you've already drawn Jane or Psylocke and then it ends up being on the left side of your hand, playing Dr. Octopus would put it back on top of your deck so you draw it next turn and play it again. That's pretty good, especially if you play Doc Ock turn 2, ready for Jane or Psylocke turn 3. And it's not just doing that, it's also giving you a random character with +3, which is some hand generation. So there's some kinds of decks that could come out of this, whether it's like Gambit Horseman stuff or Victoria Hand, maybe you want to run Quinjet. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. Whether it's cards that want buffs as well. I think there's a few homes Doc Ock could be tested in. I don't necessarily know if there's many homes he would land in, however. But as he stands, he feels like a pretty strong piece for quick draw in general, and any quick draw card that releases in the future, you probably want this card just in case. Another thing to consider, this isn't as important now, Mother Ascani isn't really a big threat, but it's to cycle a card from Mother Ascani. If you think about it, I've had a couple of decks, I had that deck with Bullseye, where Mother Ascani duplicating Bullseye was amazing, but the downside was that because I ran MODOK in that deck, there was a lot of the time MODOK would sit on the left side of my hand. If I had Doc Ock, you could cycle it back into your deck and allow Mother Ascani to buff a different card on the left side of your hand. which is maybe a consideration of why they nerfed her, because that cycling could also be a problem. But again, I think this is just a decent card. I can't give it any less than 4 stars. So 4 stars is what I'm giving it. If you have a Thanos deck, this card is always slotting into that, I think. You can play it on any turn 2 onwards, knowing that your next draw will be that leftmost card, which is a very strong ability. The only downside being is you can't always guarantee what's in the left side of your hand is going to help your game plan. But even still, then it gives it +3 power, and it also generates a card with +3 power. You know, I might have to give this a higher rating. The only reason I gave it 4 was because they decided to give it an extra power, because it was a 2-1, it's now a 2-2, which would make me think it was not as good as they had anticipated. I could be very wrong with this one, but I think I'm confident sticking at 4. Now this season I've realized I've been rating these cards all very high so far, and by the looks of things that may very well continue. With the next card we have 2-1 Red Wolf Fractured Frontier, series 5 card on the following week, is on reveal, +1 power for each card in your hand. Quick draw, give your hand +1 power. This feels very good. Nakia keeps rolling in her grave, honestly, even since Storm Horseman released, and now we have Red Wolf that just does her effect, but better. +1 power for each card in your hand, quick draw, give your hand +1 power. I really like this card. It is definitely going to the shield archetypes. You're wanting to get as many cards in your hand as possible. The one downside I see is, to get its quick draw off, you have to play it the turn you draw it. Meaning if you draw it turn 2, you probably haven't had enough time to generate things in your hand, so it's only getting the buff based off of, you have 4, so like 5. Goes to a 2-6. Yeah, I mean, a 2-6 or 2-5. Honestly, the one thing I always forget in this game is how many cards you draw on the first turn. Because you draw them, and then you draw 1 on turn 2. I think that makes it a 2-5, not a 2-6. That's just the card itself, becomes a 2-5, and then you're buffing 4 cards in your hand with +1 power, technically making it a 2-9. I don't know, this card also seems good. I can't lie. I don't see many instances that it isn't great. Maybe it gives Mad Thinker some food for thought as well. You want to fill your entire hand with a bunch of cards. If you have like Merlins and I think the season after this, there's a Scarlet Witch card that generates skills as well. Yeah, seems pretty good. Even if you played something like a Hood, you just generate a demon into your hand on turn 1, and then you've still got extra things in your hand for Red Wolf to proc off of. Oh boy, oh boy. This is one of the stronger quick draws. I'm going to give it 4.5. I think it's one of the stronger quick draws also because it's cheaper, so the only time you can't play it when you draw it is turn 1, which, to be fair, is the most common time you're going to draw a card. But that aside, getting power for the cards in your hand allows you in that case to wait until you've generated more cards in your hand with like a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, there's so many cards I could list. The shield cards are definitely the big ones there. And then if you have 6 cards in your hand, you could technically have 7 if you played Agent Coulson, then Red Wolf, you know? You could pick up a 2-8. Yeah, going to give some kind of fun archetypes for people to think about here, I think, and going to be a fun one to play around with. Then on the following week, we have Death Wretched Frontier, which is a 5/8 that reads, on reveal, resurrect all your destroyed characters to random locations. So this is just Hela for destroy. I think we've been over that. This card also got buffed from a 5/7 to a 5/8. This, however, is one that I think might not be as strong as people are thinking. There've been a lot of these kind of cards come out, and they always seem to be at the bottom of tier lists. I mean, especially for mine. If you think about like Elixir and Archangel, Archangel, Angel of Death, maybe? Something like that. The card name is crazy. And Morgan Le Fay. The cards have had some time in the spotlight to do a few things, but I don't know. 5/8 resurrecting all your destroyed characters to random locations, because it's not like Hela. With Hela, you can discard a bunch of really big cards to allow the turn 6 play to just resurrect these huge cards, right? With Death, the things you're destroying are probably going to be cheaper. I mean, you could destroy like Sage and things like Wolfsbane, things like, I guess even Gambit to a degree. This is the regular Gambit. All these cards that have good on reveals that are going to do things like buff their own power or destroy enemy cards. And I could see something there with like, what are we thinking? Like Hood into Firehair, into Gambit, into Misery, into Death. I guess that's just discarding a lot of cards from your hand, but imagine you still have Death then to bring back. But then you're just bringing back Hood and Gambit, right? There's probably things I'm missing, even if it's just like the Thanos deck where you draw cards, destroy the stones, then Death brings them back to draw a bunch more cards. Maybe that's where she sees play. I'm going to give her 3.5 because her ceiling is really high, but her floor is very low. You still have to draw the destroy cards, and if you want to benefit from like the draws, for example, you have to play her turn 5. Otherwise, if you're benefiting from the on reveals from some things like Sage and all of that, then turn 6. But it's definitely the best card that's been revealed that does this resurrecting dead characters thing. The sad part about this is I think then it makes cards like Elixir and Archangel even more redundant. I mean, just think about Morgan Le Fay is definitely rolling in her very deep, hellish grave at this point. But I'm reserved from going above 3.5. 3.5 is still good, very good, by the way. I mentioned a little while back that I was too worried I was doing the IMDb style of ratings where like 7 was basically average. But now I'm reverting back, meaning 3.5 is equivalent to a 7 out of 10, which is pretty good. No one's going to turn their nose up at that. And yeah, I think that's about all I really have to say on the card. Then next up on the Monday of the final week, I believed that this was the Series 5 card until I had just read it again. But this is Hellcow Fractured Frontier. It is a 3/3 that reads, end of turn, afflict all other cards here with -1 power, then destroy your cards here with 0 power or less. I think this card is pretty good. I've been wrong before. Last season I gave Boomerang my 5-star. I genuinely think this is my 5-star card. Allow me to explain. Especially after Scorpion has just released, any cards that afflict things seem very strong. Luke Cage has also just been nerfed, and if you play this turn 3 on a location, let's say has at least 2 cards, which, to be fair, is decently doable by turn 3, most of the time might just be a 1-drop. This is comparable to Cyclops, for example. It costs 1 less, and it doesn't have the restriction of needing to leave 1 energy open. Has 1 less power, sorry, not costs 1 less. And Cyclops already feels pretty good, no? It feels like the second best high Evo card next to Hulk. And this card is afflicting all cards, not just 2. The only downside it has is that it's also afflicting your cards, which its following text, I think, technically makes it an upside. Destroy your cards here with 0 power or less. Now, if you have cards you want to get rid of, you want them destroyed, say like a Bucky Barnes, for example, you could play Yellow Jacket onto it and then Hellcow, and then Hellcow destroys Bucky. I know that's a crazy thing. It just randomly came to my mind. I do not know why. It doesn't feel too great. I will say the other thing you could do with this is play it and send it over with Viper, meaning you're just going to keep discounting the opponent's cards. The downside there again is that then they'll get destroyed if they go below 0 power, which still feels pretty strong if they have like a strong piece that they want to play around with. Sending this over is nuts, and honestly, it's going to mess with them quite a lot. I like that angle. The other angle I really like is in the Firehair deck. I think I'm just a big Firehair fan because I keep mentioning the card. But playing like Hood, Firehair, Hellcow destroys, Hood gives you another demon. You can play some other on-reveal cards that are like low power level. their on reveal goes off, Hellcow lowers them, destroys them, and then, you know, it's great. It's basically like a Cyclops cross with, is it a Tumor? A Tumor at the end of the turn, destroying one card that costs less, has less power than it. The Hellcow's doing it to every card, and it also has the offensive effect of like lowering the power of your opponent's cards. I don't know. I am worried of overrating cards after Boomerang, but I genuinely see this being very strong. I don't see many instances that it's not. Let me just reread its text to make sure I'm not going crazy. Afflicts all other cards here with -1 power, then destroy your cards here. Yep, destroy your cards here with 0 power or less. Yeah, a lot of applicability in decks that haven't seen play for a while, and I think that's why I like the card so much. But also just feels like a stronger version of Cyclops, and that card already feels pretty decent. Requires you to run high Evo as well alongside it. This card just does all of this on its own. Very cool card. I'd definitely pick it up, especially seeing as it's only Series 4. And lastly, the Series 3 card for the last week is Red Hulk Fractured Frontier, which is a 3/8 that reads, on reveal, -1 power here for each enemy card. Quick draw, +1 power instead. So this is an interesting one, because the quick draw is very, very strong, but if you don't hit the quick draw, you're actually getting a downgrade, which now leads me into that range I was talking about before, where it's like a lot of these cards are fine because you don't have to rely on hitting the quick draw. The card still does something. With Red Hulk, if you draw it any turn after turn 3, I think this card is just not that great. You can't reliably hit what you need. The thing is, if you don't have priority as well, you don't know where your opponent's playing. Like, imagine you play on a location, your opponent plays 2 cards, so this becomes a 3/6. Now, 3/6 is above average still, so I don't think that's bad by any means. But also, like, you kind of always want it to be a 3/8 at least. It's definitely going into the Tarantula style lists. If you draw it on turn 3 and your opponent has a lane with 2 cards on it, this is just a 3/10. Which is basically 1 power more than Wilson Fisk at that point. But it gets us into that like conversation of, is this card better than Wilson Fisk? And I'm not really sure. Now, Wilson Fisk, I think I would probably rate the card about, it's like 4-star or 4.5, somewhere around there. It feels like a good card, but it's slotted into only one deck, and I think for me that lowers my rating a lot of the time. But for Red Hulk, yeah, it's a weird one. I say that it's not good if you play it any turn after turn 3, but that's only the case if it's not quick draw. Like, if you quick draw at turn 4, 5, or 6, it technically gets slightly better, because then your opponent's going to have more cards on the board. Hitting a 3/12 with this card is going to feel nuts. Yeah, I think that's about all I really need to say. It's too difficult to know whether quick draw is going to be consistent or not for me to know whether this card is good. Turn 3, you'd want to play it, right? Turn 4, you'd only want to play it if you have a 1-drop, but still a 4/12, like if you're investing 4 energy for this card, still feels decent. Which leads me to think for quick draw cards, would you want to run them with like high Evo and Sunspot style things? Because if you don't have 1-drops to go alongside them, you're just floating energy anyway, because you're considering the fact that it's a quick draw effect over the fact that you're not spending all your energy. Maybe that's something to bear in mind, I don't know. Turn 5, you're only going to want to play it if you have a 2-drop or at least a 1-drop alongside it, otherwise you're spending 5 energy for a 12. Maybe not even 12, I don't think your opponent would have a full side of the location at that point. I guess there's also points to make about it possibly being used in a clog deck. Like, if you send the goblins over, playing this on the location where you know they have goblins, not great, and also Hellcow releases the day before, so I don't think that's going to see play. Clog has not had any support in a while, and it's understandable, to be fair. But I don't know with this one. I think I might just stick at 3 stars. It's too clunky to know whether I think it's going to be great. I could very easily go lower than 3 as well, I think. But I could see arguments for people saying go higher as well. But yeah, so that wraps it up for all the August cards. I have rated pretty much all of these decently high with the exception of 2. I think this season is going to be nuts, and hopefully you save some tokens for it. So yeah, that is the end of the video. So thank you all for watching and sticking around. If you did enjoy the video, dropping a like or even a subscribe if you really want to stick around would always be appreciated. So thanks in advance, and I'll speak to you all next time.